All right, we are live or recording, I suppose. So Stephen Follett here with Thunderbird Long Range and Long Range Studies. Right now we've got Paul Butler coming back. He's going to give us our first installment of supported or positional shooting, and going to talk about what a supported position means, defines it. But again, I just wanted to mention we've got Paul Rock Precision, right? And
Yeah, that's
Evolved
good.
Ballistics. If you want a proof barrel or a proof rifle or positional training, get in touch with Paul. And especially if you need a suppressor wrap. This is the original Freedom wrap, right? This is the
It is
one.
the original, the first one.
It's awesome. It's still holding up, man. This thing gets shoved in and out of my bag, and it's been hot on more than one occasion. Maybe a little too hot, but
Good.
very good. All right, so supported position. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I kind of sat down and tried to define what that is, and so essentially came up with supported position is any position other than offhand, which typically is like your standing, kneeling, prone kind of shooting, that uses exterior objects to create a stable shooting platform. And if you really think about it, even if you're using bipods and shooting the prone, that is supported shooting. Essentially, supported shooting is the front of the rifle is supported by an exterior object. So
So,
be that your bipods or a barrel or a rock, whatever it is, something is supporting the front end of your bipod. If that makes
so
sense.
that would not include, like you're saying, when you have your rifle and
Right.
you're holding the forend
Because
up.
then you are personally supporting it, and that no
I,
longer is really what I consider supported shooting.
okay,
That
so it's
is
not.
unsupported shooting.
Yeah, and that does not include sling as well. Was my point. So if you have a sling,
I mean, I consider. I mean, slings help stabilize your position. Yeah, so I would still consider that an unsupported shooting because you are the one supporting the rifle
you,
itself.
you still have a
Um,
sling.
Anytime you have an exterior object, as in something you're resting the rifle on, then it gets you into the supported realm. And so there's a
Okay.
lot of things that kind of go with that. I mean, everyone for the most part is shooting, starts off shooting from the prone or from the bench, and that's good and that's a great place to learn. It's one of your most stable positions. But what happens when you get out of that position? Obviously, your fundamentals still apply, but there's things that you need to go over and to apply in order to help get a good stable position. So there's 5 principles that we go off of, and I like to use principles. Essentially, they are unchanging no matter what position you're in or what you do. There is these are going to apply in some way, shape, or form. And I will say at the very beginning that you're not going to find a lot of positions that apply all of these perfectly all the way through. It's
Yeah.
going to be a give and take. You know, some places you may get rear elbow support, but you may not have as low of a center of gravity as you want. But anyways, so the 5 principles. So the first one is apply the fundamentals of marksmanship. There's 3 fundamentals: bone support, muscle relaxation, natural point of aim. And that's really what we're going to cover today. The second one is low center of gravity. Maximize surface contact with vertical and horizontal objects around you, recoil management, and rear elbow support. So the rest of those we're going to cover at a later time, but today I really want to focus on applying the 3 fundamentals of marksmanship. So, so you and I were talking before we started here, just kind
Yeah.
of how much you once you get into dry fire and you realize how much applying these fundamentals, as basic as they are, really takes down on the amount of wobble that you have.
Yeah, and what I found interesting, and again, it's probably just because I started to dry fire, a serious dry fire practice. Every morning I'll go out, whether it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes, I'm out dry firing. But what I started to notice was I had like jerky wobble.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could get it on the crosshair and it could stay there momentarily, but then it would just jerk and wobble.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I wanted to get that, and so ultimately what it came down to was I just learned I needed to completely relax. Like it wasn't that if I consciously relaxed was almost as limp as I possibly could get,
Mm-hmm.
then my rifle would go where it would go and it would just sit there. And
Yep.
so then I just needed to adjust my body or adjust the bag or move the rifle forward or backward. But once I did that, I could literally just get limp and take the breath and come out, and it would just sit there. And that was just the last couple of days that I discovered that. So the muscle for me, it wasn't don't have muscle tension. It was like just relax, stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right. Which is
same thing, but that's
mental, right? And so, and I don't know if you've consciously realized it, but one of the things that allows you to get that muscle relaxation is the very first thing we talk about is bone support. Right? So using your bones to support your body. And this is probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see with people shooting is they don't use proper bone support. And it's mainly in the standing positions. So let me start off with in prone. A lot of guys think you don't need bone support in prone. Well, you just don't think about it, but you do. Essentially, your rib cage is, if you were completely relaxed, your rib cage is what holding you up. Right? You shouldn't be propped up on your elbows. You should just be relaxed, resting on your rib cage, and those are the bones that are supporting you. When you move up to the next level, let's say we get into the kneeling position, typically bone support looks like me having my shin straight up and down. So when I rest my rifle on it, I'm having direct support that goes right into the ground. If I have my legs stretched out, either in or out, then I'm starting to rest on either sinews or muscle. So then that muscle and sinew has a little bit more give and flex to it, whereas my bone is going to be very supportive. And then finally moving into like the standing position where you see the most, 9 times out of 10, when I see a guy shooting off a barrel or a log or even a tripod, which is a supported position as well, is when they shoot standing, 9 guys out of 10 who typically don't know what they're doing or have never been formally trained, I should say, have a bend in their knees. And if you have a bend in your knees, you're using muscle to hold yourself up. And at the end of the day, muscles get tired, bones don't. Easy way is to lock your legs out. You lock your legs out, you have straight up and down legs, your bones are supporting your weight, and your muscles are not, which will reduce the amount of vertical muzzle movement that you see in your rifle just by doing that alone.
So when you're doing that, you're looking to basically lock the legs and lock them back basically to where your knees go back, and it's a mechanical lock then, essentially. It's a physical lock. They just won't go anywhere.
Yep, exactly. I mean,
okay.
I know like when you're at graduation class, they tell you not to lock your legs out, you pass out and all that other stuff. You're not standing there for 5 hours. It's to take your shot, you lock your legs, and it's a great position to be in because you just have solid bone support. And that solid bone support helps you get that muscle relaxation. I mean, same thing when it can also be applied in unsupported shooting as well. When you have your front arm supporting the rifle, when you have your arm overly extended, you're using your bicep muscle to really try and control and support the front of the rifle. Where if you can get into a position, yeah, you're right. If you can get into a position where all of a sudden you have your arm up and down or as close to vertical as possible, then I have direct support. The rifle's not going anywhere. Vice where if I have my arm out, now I'm actually using my bicep muscle to hold up the rifle itself. So those are kind of some just principles with bone support that I want to use whenever possible, because I'm going to have a lot more stability using my bones than using my muscles.
So just try to, so as far as that's concerned, just the way that I'm picturing it, based upon, that epiphany that I had, is just try to get your body and muscles into a position that if you relax, you won't crumple down into a big pile.
Exactly. Yeah. Putting your legs, putting your arms into positions that your bones will support your weight and not your muscles. Exactly.
Yeah. So what about, this might be the advanced class, but what about your back? Because I've learned to lock my legs. I have a lot of times I have like a super wide stance just to try to lock my legs rather than bend it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do about your back? Do you lean over, or is there anything special that you're looking at when you have to lean into the rifle?
I mean, your back, it depends. There's a lot that goes into that. And again, it's also the kind of the give and take of, I'm going to get a bone support here, but it may mean that I have muscle tension in my lower back. Typically, what I do personally is I like to use the SS loophole sling. The sling connects to the front of my rifle. That connects back to my belt on my hips and allows me to completely relax my hips and my lower back, and greatly reduces my vertical muzzle movement. But also, I mean, you also think that if you're something you're leaning onto, if it's a barricade, you're leaning onto the barricade. You should try to push that weight into the barricade. Or if it's a tripod, your tripod should be stable enough to hold your weight as you lean forward into it. So that's going to help.
So if I'm understanding that, you're basically locking up, and so you're putting the bone support just like your rib cage laying on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Locks, your bones to that. Then essentially, if you're on the rifle and the rifle is on the barricade and you're locked in, then that's locking the bone support and using the bone support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as I said, we're getting a little bit more advanced stuff, but I mean that would also be to use your non-shooting hand to lock your elbow out and push against the barricade, and that's another way to support your back. That's a great way on the tripod to go thumb down, lock your arm out on either the opposite leg or your shooting leg or the support side leg of the tripod. That helps hold your body up and relax your back muscles.
So and that's something that you've just got to experiment with. Obviously, there's things that you can do, but I'm a taller guy, so I'm going to have to do things different than a shorter guy, to get into certain positions. I don't bend as well as I once used to, right? Okay, so bone support. We've hashed over that. What's the second fundamental we're going to hit?
So the second fundamental of that is muscle relaxation, and I'm not going to spend too much on that.
We kind of did hit it a little bit.
Yeah, we already hit it a little bit, and also it should be a natural result of good bone support. Is you should get that muscle relaxation. You shouldn't be have muscle tension trying to push either the sights on target or push the gun on target. You should be able to relax your body behind the rifle, and your sight should be naturally lying in place. So essentially, that's what we want, because with muscle tension, and as you mentioned, you're noticing a lot of things with your dry fire. Is you see things when you develop good muscle memory, you can see that stuff that happens that's hidden by recoil. Is if I have muscle tension and boom, the recoil happens, and I either relax just before or tensed up just after the shot, and it's causing my shots to go off left or right, or I don't know where, and that's because I have muscle tension built into it. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, I want to point out, I really like when I'm watching Jim C. and like Scott Satterley and Phil Vallejo and Phil and those guys, that they have the scope vision, so that we can see what they're seeing in the scope. Mm-hmm. The way that I see, I mean, they have the wobble, but it's just it's a relaxed wobble. Mm-hmm. Is the way that I would describe it now. Whereas mine, I could get it relaxed for a second, but then it would jerk around a little bit. So what I was having to do was relax in a second and then try to break the shot at that moment before I jerked around. And that was the mainly muscle tension, I think, is right. Because I was having to force it. And so I think I'm saying that to lead us into what the third fundamental is.
Right, right. And I'll throw out there real quick that what your crosshairs should look like is if you're going to have wobble, you're going to have movement in supported shooting, but it should look like essentially a sideways figure eight or infinity sign with a slow, steady kind of movement. And the goal is to put that movement inside of the target that you're shooting. So I had a guy, he asked me, he's like, so are you like trying to pull it when it's on target, or are you trying to do a surprise break? I was like, well, it's kind of a surprise break, but I'm pulling on the trigger, pulling, and once I come off target, I stop pulling. And I'm only pulling when I'm actually on the target. So yes, it's a surprise break, but I'm not pulling the trigger unless I'm on target. So it should be kind of a combination of the two. But yeah, so that's kind of what your crosshairs, that's the goal.
Mine was not that. Mine was not that. It was, and I had a lot of
people moving here and then like randomly jumping.
Yeah, it was not a wobble, and that's when it dawned on me that, hey, I'm like relaxing because I started breathing because I stopped breathing. You know, I noticed that in dry fire. I'm like, I started breathing, trying to relax, and that's what I noticed is I would like just settle in, and then it would start the slow wobble. But as soon as I tried to move it on target or move, and I wasn't,
it would jerk off, right? And so, yeah. So then that leads us into our last one, like you're saying, the natural point of aim. So natural point of aim is defined as the relationship of the crosshairs naturally lying on the target. Self-explanatory, but a lot of people will get behind the gun. Their crosshairs will be generally close to the rifle, to their target, and what do? They will muscle, they'll push it over just to get it onto target, and that's defeating the first two principles we talked about of bone support and muscle relaxation. That's not relaxed whatsoever, and you're just kind of pushing it off to the side just to get on target. So
yeah, and the way that I see it is, the first one is get stable, get hard, right? Get that bone support, and then once you've got that maximized, then relax as much as you can.
Yeah, and see where that wobble goes, or that wobble.
And the natural point of aim is, okay, I've got bone support, I'm relaxed, but where's the rifle pointing?
Exactly. Yeah. And so if your natural point of aim, if your wobble is sitting there just off the left or the right of your target, it's just a small adjustment of your body, the whole body, not pushing the rifle, but adjusting your whole position just slightly over so that that wobble becomes on the target now. And that is your natural point of aim. And for those who don't know, on your natural point of aim, the easiest way to find out if you do have that, first start off in the prone, is to get down behind your gun, you get on target, close your eyes, breathe in, breathe out. You can do it once, do it a couple times, and then open your eyes. That you're trying to relax as much as possible and see where your crosshairs are gone. If they're on target still, then you have natural point of aim. If not, if they've moved off to the left or right or up, down, then you need to adjust your position. And I noticed this just yesterday. I was doing a break-in on some rifles and working on my 300 PRC I just got, and I noticed that as I'm trying to hold and shoot these little tiny groups, that my crosshairs are moving just a little bit, and so I just close my eyes, relax, and then as I open my eyes, I see my crosshairs are way off to the right. I was like, I'm putting pressure on the back end of the rifle to push it onto target. Well, I adjust my body, everything, and then once I'm relaxed, close my eyes, open again, dead on target, pull on the trigger is all you got to do at that point in time, and makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, I have shot a lot of prone, so I don't practice prone or dry fire in the prone. I probably should. But I did get to where I relaxed and I closed my eyes and made sure I can get natural point of aim prone. I don't as much in the bench.
Right.
I don't shoot as much, but I've learned to lean on the bench and rest my rib cage on the bench rather than sit behind the gun and just rest. I like to lean up over.
Right. And that's one of the other principles of maximizing surface contact, which we'll get to. Yeah. We'll get to later. But yeah, doing that in a supported position, and I understand that Most guys are not going to go into a match and go into a stage and run up there, get behind their gun, and then close their eyes and then check their natural point of aim. But that's where dry practice comes in. That's where live fire practice comes in, is knowing yourself well enough to realize when you have muscle tension, realize when you're trying to push the rifle onto target, and so that you just hit different positions, as many different types of positions as you can, over and over and over again, that your body naturally picks up those positions, and you get behind the rifle, get bone support, get muscle relaxation, and you have that good natural point of aim right down behind the rifle.
Yeah, and now that I start to see when I don't have natural point of aim, which is pretty much all the time, right? At least it was. Is I know I don't have a natural point of aim unless I get that small wobble, unless I get that small easy wobble. If I have a little jerk, I take a deep breath, and I just relax. I can't describe. I just get relaxed and floppy, and then I look back on target and I see where it is, and then I adjust my body. So I don't necessarily close my eyes anymore, but I'm like I'm tense somewhere, relax, and just let the rifle go where the rifle's going to go.
Yep. Yeah, and it's as simple. You don't really necessarily have to close your eyes. Closing your eyes just kind of helps you relax a little bit more. But just if you can make yourself relax and see where your wobble goes. Yeah, that should be a good idea if you have it or not.
The reason that closing my eyes worked before is because I was lying to myself, thinking that I was relaxed. Exactly. That's why. It's because, are you relaxed? And they'll say yes, and then you say, okay, close your eyes, relax. And then open your eyes. Okay, were you on target? And they're like, I'm not on target. And they're like, well, then you weren't relaxed, right? So it's a check. But now that I stopped lying to myself about being relaxed, and I'm aware of whether I'm relaxed or not, it doesn't require me to close my eyes to check natural point of aim, because it either is now or it's not, because I either get that just gentle wobble, or I get the jerky. And if I get that jerky stuff, then I know I've got too much muscle tension. Now, standing, I have a bigger wobble.
Yep, and that's natural. Yeah.
But I'm not concerned about the bigger wobble. It's the nature of the wobble. It's an easy wobble. Wobble is good. I guess jerking around is bad.
Exactly. If you have a good predictable path, that's good. So let's close up and finish this out with application. We can talk about this all day, and I know no one likes to talk about the F word, fundamentals, but how can we be practical about this? How can I take this from podcast and out onto the range and see better results? And I'd say, first of all, it's starting in the prone, especially if this isn't something you practice. It's starting in the prone and working on being completely relaxed. It takes what people don't want to do, and just kind of an introspective looking at yourself and in your position so that you have natural point of aim, getting completely relaxed, getting off of your elbows on the prone, relaxing completely on your rib cage. And I think you guys will start to see your groups tighten up once you start applying all three of those. And then once you've really mastered that, moving into and taking these principles into your other positions. And I would say definitely start out all of these with dry fire, and see how little your crosshairs start moving, and doing the natural point of aim test as much as possible, just closing your eyes, relaxing, and then opening them, checking that and doing that consistently every single time you dry fire, and then during some of your live fire as well, will definitely help the shooter out and be a good start and help lay a good foundation for guys.
No, that's fantastic. All right, thanks, Paul. If those were your final words, then we'll just sign off. And so the next installment, what are we going to be talking about?
The next installment, so we're gonna move out of here, and we're gonna cover what the low center of gravity, and we're gonna talk about maximizing surface contact with vertical and horizontal objects. So we'll cover those two topics, what that looks like, and I think we'll try and get into some scenarios as well for guys so they really understand how to put those into play.
All right, fantastic. So we'll be getting that one next week. We'll see you later, Paul. We'll see you later, everybody. Let me, here we go. Stop recording. We'll see ya.